Welcome to Breakthrough Blueprint, the podcast where we decode the future of technology and business innovation. I'm your host, Anis Merchant. Today, we're diving deep into what I'm calling the most pivotal week in AI history, October 5th through 11th, 2025. While you were probably focused on your quarterly planning or catching up on Netflix, the entire landscape of artificial intelligence underwent a seismic shift that will fundamentally change how every business operates in the next 12 months. Here's the hook that should grab your attention. In just 7 days, we witnessed OpenAI launch what they're calling the new App Store revolution. Google released an AI that can literally control your computer like a human would, and global financial regulators essentially admitted they're struggling to keep up with AI's explosive growth. But here's what most people missed: these aren't just incremental updates, they represent a complete paradigm shift in how AI integrates into business operations. And if you think this doesn't affect your industry, think again. Whether you're in retail, manufacturing, healthcare, or professional services, the developments from this single week will reshape your competitive landscape within the next 18 months. I've spent the last 72 hours analyzing every announcement, every regulatory filing, and every market reaction, and what I've discovered will fundamentally change how you think about AI strategy. Let me break down the 5 game-changing developments that happened this week and explain exactly why they matter for your business strategy, your career, and your company's future. First, let's talk about OpenAI's Dev Day on October 6th. This wasn't just another tech conference. It was the moment AI transformed from a tool into a platform ecosystem. Sam Altman took the stage and announced GPT-5 Pro API with a massive 400,000 token context window. To put that in business terms, this AI can now process the equivalent of 300 pages of complex documentation and provide analysis in real time. We're talking about reviewing entire merger agreements, analyzing comprehensive market research reports, or processing your company's complete annual report, all instantaneously. But here's the kicker: it's priced at $50 per million input tokens, which means for most business applications, you're looking at costs that are 80% lower than hiring human analysts for the same complexity of work. The speed advantage is so dramatic that it creates what economists call a step function improvement, meaning the competitive advantage is not incremental, it's exponential. The real game changer, though, was OpenAI's announcement of the ChatGPT app ecosystem. With 800 million weekly users, that's more than TikTok, more than LinkedIn, ChatGPT is now positioning itself as a direct competitor to Apple and Google's app stores. Users can now access Spotify, Zillow, Canva, and Expedia through natural language interactions within ChatGPT. But here's what the business press missed: this isn't just about convenience. This represents the death of traditional software interfaces as we know them. Think about it. Instead of training employees on dozens of different software platforms, they'll simply describe what they want to accomplish in plain English. The implications for corporate training budgets, user adoption rates, and software procurement strategies are staggering. Second major development: Google's response came in the form of Gemini 2.5 computer use. And this represents the most significant advancement in AI autonomy we've ever seen. This model can navigate web pages, click buttons, fill out forms, and complete multi-step tasks just like a human employee would. I spoke with 3 enterprise customers who've been testing this in beta, and they're reporting productivity gains of 45% to 60%. But what's really interesting is where these gains are coming from. It's not just automation of simple tasks. This AI can handle complex workflows that previously required human judgment. For example, one financial services company is using it to automatically populate loan applications by gathering information from multiple online sources, cross-referencing data for accuracy, and even identifying potential red flags for human review. The strategic implication here is massive. This technology eliminates the need for traditional software integrations and APIs. Your AI assistant can now work with any web-based software, regardless of whether it has an API or not. This means the software integration projects that typically take 6-12 months can now be accomplished in days. Third, let's talk about what happened in the video generation space, because this has huge implications for marketing and content creation budgets. OpenAI's Sora app hit 1 million downloads in less than 5 days, despite being invitation-only and iOS exclusive. But the real story isn't the download numbers. It's what this represents for content production costs. I've been tracking the marketing spend of Fortune 500 companies, and video content typically represents 40-60% of digital marketing budgets. Sora and similar tools are about to compress video production timelines from weeks to hours and cost from tens of thousands to hundreds of dollars. We're talking about a 95% reduction in both time and cost for high-quality video content. But here's the strategic challenge. When everyone has access to Hollywood-quality video production tools, how do you differentiate your brand? The companies that will win are those that focus on storytelling and brand strategy rather than production quality. The technical barriers are disappearing, which means the creative and strategic barriers become infinitely more important. Fourth, and this is perhaps the most overlooked story of the week, what happened in the regulatory space? The Financial Stability Board, which is the G20's risk watchdog, published a report on October 10th essentially admitting that global financial regulators are at an early stage in tracking AI risks. They're warning about herd-like behavior if too many institutions use the same AI models, and they're calling for urgent upgrades to regulatory capabilities. When I read this report, two things immediately stood out. First, they're acknowledging that AI adoption in financial services is moving faster than their ability to understand and regulate it. Second, they're specifically concerned about concentration risk, the possibility that if everyone uses the same AI models, a single point of failure could cascade through the entire financial system. What this means for business leaders is that we're currently in what I call the regulatory uncertainty window. The rules haven't been written yet, but they're coming. Companies that establish strong AI governance frameworks now will have a significant advantage when regulations do arrive. Those that wait will find themselves scrambling to comply with requirements that could significantly impact their AI strategies. Fifth, and this ties everything together, the enterprise partnership announcements that flew under the radar. IBM partnered with Anthropic to integrate Claude into enterprise software development, with early adopters reporting 45% productivity gains. Microsoft partnered with Harvard Health to enhance Copilot's medical accuracy. Deloitte rolled out Anthropic's Claude to nearly 500,000 employees globally. These aren't just technology partnerships, they're market validation signals. When companies like IBM, Microsoft, and Deloitte make billion-dollar bets on specific AI platforms, they're essentially placing strategic wagers on which technologies will dominate the enterprise market. And they're doing it based on proprietary data about ROI, user adoption, and risk management that the rest of us don't have access to. Now, let's talk about what this convergence means for your business strategy. The developments from this week create what I call the AI integration inflection point. Companies that were previously hesitant about AI adoption because of integration complexity, cost, or regulatory uncertainty now have a clear path forward, but they also face unprecedented competitive pressure. Here's my analysis of the strategic implications. First, customer acquisition and engagement models are about to be completely disrupted. Instead of users jumping between different apps and websites, they'll increasingly interact with brands through conversational interfaces. This means your SEO strategy, your App Store optimization, your social media presence, all of these traditional digital marketing channels are about to become less important than your ability to integrate with AI platforms. Second, workflow automation is about to accelerate dramatically. Google's computer control capabilities mean that potentially entire categories of routine business processes will be eliminated. But here's what most people miss. This creates a strategic advantage for companies that can redeploy those human resources to higher value activities faster than their competitors. Third, the regulatory acknowledgement of being behind the curve suggests that the current period represents a brief window of competitive advantage for early movers. Once comprehensive frameworks are established, the barriers to entry will be higher, and the compliance costs will be significant. For business leaders listening to this, you have three immediate action items. First, evaluate how your customer touchpoints will be affected by conversational commerce platforms. If you're in retail, professional services, or any B2C business, you need to start experimenting with AI native customer engagement strategies now. Second, identify which of your internal processes could be automated using AI agents that can control existing software interfaces. Don't think about this in terms of replacing employees. Think about it in terms of eliminating the bottlenecks that prevent your best people from focusing on strategic work. Third, establish AI governance frameworks now before regulatory requirements become more stringent. This includes data privacy protocols, bias detection systems, and audit trails for AI decision-making processes. The companies that will thrive in this new landscape are those that view AI not as a technology to be implemented, but as a fundamental shift in how business gets done. We're moving from an era where AI was a competitive advantage to an era where AI fluency will be a basic requirement for business survival. Think about it this way. 10 years ago, having a mobile responsive website was a competitive advantage. Today, not having one means you're not really in business. AI integration is following the same trajectory, except it's happening 5 times faster. My prediction is that by the end of 2026, there will be two types of companies: those that have successfully integrated AI into their core business processes, and those that are struggling to stay relevant. The developments from this week just accelerated that timeline significantly. That's all for today's Breakthrough Blueprint. I'm Anis Merchant, and remember, the future doesn't wait for permission. Until next time, keep building, keep innovating, and stay ahead of the curve.